Well, let's get the big news out of the way first, shall we? Everybody's talking about it right now. Why did Trump get up today, have this big press conference? Pam Bondi's there, Pete Hegseth behind him, all the big shots in the room. He got up and said this.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control, and you'll be meeting the people that will be directly involved with that. Very good people, but they're tough. And they know what's happening. They've done it before. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C., and they're going to be allowed to do their job properly.
Right? Why? We'll get to the communist motivations for it and why they're upset, but one of the big reasons why is, well, I'll tell you what, pause on that. Remember when we talked about job interviews before? You and me. I've given you advice on job interviews, and one of the main things, maybe the main thing, show up looking nice, dressed up. It doesn't mean you have to have a $1,000 suit on, but whatever your best clothes are, dress up. No cut-off shorts. No one wants to see your tattoos. Put on some decent clothes and show up for your job interview. Why? First impressions matter a lot. Appearance matters a lot. Did you know? Here's a little historical tidbit you may not know. Have you ever been to D.C.? Even if you haven't, I know you've seen pictures of it. You know what parts of it look like. Pretty fancy, right? All that white marble, pillars, and these monuments here. Did you know that was done intentionally by the founders of this country? Why? These were small government people. They didn't want D.C. to be super powerful or anything like that. They didn't want a kingdom. Why did they intentionally create something that looked so good? Because they understood foreign dignitaries would visit the United States of America. They would visit our nation's capital, and what they saw when they got there matters. How you dress when you show up for a job interview, for a first date. It does matter, and anyone who tells you it doesn't is a moron. It matters that Washington, D.C., the capital of our nation, is a dump. A dangerous dump. Murders through the roof. Higher crime rate than Mexico freaking City. Carjackings, break-ins. It is a total dump. I won't even take my family there now. And look, Trump, who's about, I think Friday, he's going into negotiations with Vladimir Putin. He brought up this exact thing.
And it's embarrassing for me to be up here. You know, I'm going to see Putin. I'm going to Russia on Friday. I don't like being up here talking about how unsafe and how dirty and disgusting this once beautiful capital was.
Impressions matter. I'll tell you something. You know, I want to go to Turkey one day. Stay with me. You know why I want to go to Turkey? Because coming back, I was just flying through, we had a layover in Istanbul, both ways. A layover in Istanbul. The airport was unbelievable. It was huge. It was nice. Great food. All the employees were dressed to the nines. Very pleasant. And that impression of Istanbul, of Turkey, maybe want to go back and visit one day. Impressions matter. It matters that Washington, D.C., and let me expand this a little bit more. It matters that America's cities, our biggest cities, are dumps. It matters that the murder is high, that there are homeless people everywhere, that people run amok. It does matter. And maybe you're sitting there in rural America right now, as I am, and you're saying to yourself, I don't care about the city, screw the cities. I understand that sentiment. I grew up in Montana. I get that sentiment all the way. I don't live in New York City or Washington, D.C. I understand it. But in Japan, in Saudi Arabia, in Peru, What's on the billboards for America? New York, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles. As much as I may love Montana, they're not putting that on the billboard. The fact that our cities are a crime-ridden, murder-filled dump is important. It does matter. And I want you to understand something else, because we're about to get into the Democrat, the communist motivations for why they're this way, but you know it's a choice, right? This is something that we don't realize, we Americans don't realize, because we've gotten used to, well, cities are full of crime. Cities are dirty. Cities are full of crime. I probably can't send your daughter there for the weekend, not without a chaperone. That's what we've gotten used to. There are cities all over the world that are sparkling clean. Go to Tokyo one day. Way more people than any city in America. You can put your wife out on the street and have her walk 10 city blocks at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, and she'll come back to you safe and sound. There are cities all across the world that are not dirty. They're not full of crime. They're not full of murderers. American cities are, because Democrats are evil, crime-loving communists, and they've destroyed our cities. Donald Trump is stepping in to clean up murder and rape and robbery. And today, in response to this, you saw a lot of this.
One of the things that we have seen over and over from the president, from his team, Stephen Miller saying it's like Baghdad in Ethiopia. They seem to hold their harshest criticism sometimes for cities that are majority black and brown.
Chris, to be honest with you, I'm trying to hold my temper. I think there's an ongoing argument that he's having in his head with Black Lives Matter. There's an ongoing argument that he's having with the questions around criminal justice reform and police reform. It's interesting that he really doesn't really care about what's actually happening in D.C. on a certain level, because he's not trying to get at the underlying root causes.
Well, the root causes. It wasn't just MSNBC. It's been Democrat after Democrat, media channel after media channel. This was CNN.
And just as we go to break, I should note that the most violent moment in recent history in D.C. was January 6th. And it was an attack on the United States Capitol by a lot of people who were doing it in the name of Donald Trump. And it included, the people who were hurt included members of law enforcement.
That's an insane person. So why are they doing that today? Telling outright ridiculous lies like that? Why the response to this? Well, this is where we dig into communism and what they want. First of all, remember something. We don't have Democrats in America anymore. We have communists. That's what they are. And once you understand that's what they are, then you can move from there and understand why they say and do what they do. In the Soviet Union, during their revolution, when the Bolsheviks were having their revolution, trying to conquer the government, trying to win, did you know they opened up the prison doors? And not just a couple either. There were political prisoners, yes, but they said, no. Get the keys and open up the doors for everybody. Why would you do that? Those prisons were full of, like all prisons are, full of murderers and rapists and thieves. Why would you want them on the streets? But they actually took an extra step in the Soviet Union. They turned loose the murderers and the rapists and the thieves. And then, tell me if any of this sounds familiar, they put into place judges and the like, prosecutors, who would protect the murderers and rapists and thieves. One story I've told you before about a thief pulling a knife on a military veteran. The military veteran disarms him, hurts him. The military veteran was thrown in the gulag for that. The criminals are to be protected. The good people who try to stop them are to be thrown in prison. None of this sounds familiar, does it? So why is it communists do this? Why did they do this in the Soviet Union, in New York City, in Washington, D.C., in Los Angeles, and city after city after city? Because, well, think about a family. A happy, stable family. Mom, dad, kids, happy, content, stable. You want to break that family up. You want to destroy it. You're trying to have a revolution. Introduce a violent dog into the home. Go adopt some deranged pit bull or something like that. Starts biting everybody, tearing up the furniture. Is that going to in some way destabilize what was a stable home? Communists love violent criminals for the exact same reason. A stable, happy, content society will not embrace an evil communist revolution, but a society where people are afraid will. Destabilization. That is the name of the game. While the revolution is ongoing, they want destabilization. And this is why I have to step in here now and have a conversation with you. And it's not my job to police your words, but please stop using the term soft on crime. I still see so many people on the right using this term. They're soft on crime. These soft on crime DAs. It's Democrats' soft on crime policies. They're not soft on crime. They want people murdered. When the Democrat judge and the Democrat DA set the serial rapist loose from jail and he goes and rapes some 50-year-old woman, they're not sitting around saying, "Oh, dang it. I thought he turned his life around. I was just being soft on crime." They wanted her raped. They want you robbed. They want you assaulted. They want you murdered. They want your daughter raped. They're not soft on crime. They're pro-crime. They've done this. Democrats have done this to America's cities on purpose. And as long as we play this game of make-believe where it's a whoops, I spilled the milk and we did some crime, then we can never formally take on these communists in a way that will win. We have violent crime in our cities because Democrats want violent crime in the cities. They are pro-murder, pro-rape, pro-robbery. And this brings me to what Donald Trump did. He had to. He had no choice. This is where we're at now. A terrible set of circumstances. We now have to have Big Daddy government step in to stop innocent people from being murdered. I didn't want it to be this way. Trump mentioned New York. We might have to do the same thing in Chicago, and maybe he will have to if he can legally do so. And that's not what I want. I assume that's not what you want. But this is what happens when you allow the communists to take over our cities and they turn the jails loose. Eventually, somebody with a heavy hand is going to have to step in. Just please understand this. It's the most important part of this entire thing. Violent crime is what Democrats want. And it's why they're so angry that he's going to step in today and clean it up. When they look at more murders in Washington, D.C. per 100,000 people than really virtually any other city on the planet, they're not bummed about it. They're thrilled. And it's also why, as you see your liberal Aunt Peggy citing the crime stats going down, it's also why they moved to conquer every single government agency they could. What that does is it gives them the legitimacy of the lie. You see, if you want violent crime to go up in D.C., you know that's not going to be popular. So you simply put communists in place all over the police department who will lie about the violent crime, thus giving the media members and Democrats cover to say violent crime has gone down, when really we just had an article out last week where we discovered the commanders in Washington, D.C., the police commanders routinely show up on the job and talk people out, talk their officers out of reporting crime the way it is. It's all a lie because they want you murdered and raped. They just don't want you to know that's what they want. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. I love my cell phone company. I had to get a new phone recently because you know I have Pure Talk. And my phone was old. My phone charging port wasn't charging anymore. So I get a hold of Pure Talk because I want a new phone. And it's still, I knew this about Pure Talk. I talk to you about it every day, but they speak English. They don't farm out those jobs to a call center in India where you're trying to understand them. They're trying to understand you. Let me get the manager. No more of that. No more of that. Pure Talk is the American mobile company. Their CEO is a veteran, fought for this country, 2 tours in Vietnam. They give back to veterans. They don't give to Black Lives Matter. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, they give to every garbage communist cause out there. Pure Talk never does that. They save me money, and when you need to talk to them, they speak English. Switch. puretalk.com/JesseTV. Make the switch.
And minute, just as we go to break, I should note that the most violent moment in recent history in D.C. was January 6th. And it was an attack on the United States Capitol by a lot of people who were doing it in the name of Donald Trump. And it included, the people who were hurt included members of law enforcement.
I love that network. Joining me now, my buddy Julio Rosas, national correspondent with another network I love, The Blaze, the United States Marine. Julio, I know these muggings and shootings and whatnot are dangerous, but they're nothing compared to January 6th.
Yeah, so one, she's wrong, and I noted that when I posted that clip. I literally wrote the book on it. You see it over my shoulder. But setting aside the fact that the BLM riots in DC in particular lasted for a lot longer than January 6th, and the damage inflicted was on everybody, not just Congress. And the effects of those riots and protests are still being felt today, which is why we're talking about this current National Guard activation. But what I find very interesting is that the Democrats who are now criticizing this National Guard deployment by President Trump had zero issue with keeping the guardsmen for January 6th for months, long after there was any sort of threat to the Capitol building. The threat basically ended on January 7th, right? And so now all of a sudden, when the president wants to use the National Guard to help protect citizens, the citizens and the residents and the tourists who are now coming to the Capitol. All of a sudden, that's too much. All of a sudden, that's authoritarianism. This is fascism. And so it's just highlighting how when it comes to protecting the elites of this country, no expense is spared. But when it comes to protecting the taxpayer, protecting private citizens, well, no, we can't do that because that's racist or that's fascist in nature.
Julio, you've spent a lot more time on the streets of D.C. than I have, by the grace of God. I hate that dump, but you're back there a lot. How bad is it?
Well, it hasn't returned to pre-2020 levels in terms of the crime rate. I moved to the D.C. area back in 2017. I lived in D.C., Maryland, and Virginia during that 6-year period. And there was a noticeable shift in terms of public safety after 2020 because of the effects of the pandemic. And then, of course, like I was saying, the BLM defund the police movement. And so it's certainly not as safe as it could be, but also one as it should be, right? The fact that Mexico City is safer than Washington, D.C., the fact that Bogota, Colombia is safer than D.C., that's a stain on us, right? That shows that, one, it's a policy choice, because even if a cartel ravaged country like Mexico or Colombia can get at least their capital safe for its citizens, why can't we do that? Why do we have to be concerned about all these other places around the world, but the place that represents one of the places that represents the country, our capital, that needs to be led in disarray for a variety of reasons. That doesn't compute with me, and it doesn't compute with a lot of American citizens, especially now when we see that. Kash Patel was saying this at the briefing, that overall the murder rate nationwide is starting to go down. It's still, like I said, very high compared to what it was pre-2020, but this is all by choice. This is all by policy. And so if the local leaders in DC are insistent on this, ineffectual policy proposal or policy when it comes to criminal justice and law enforcement, then it is within President Trump's power and purview, since it is a federal district, to actually do something else to see if that's going to work to address this significant problem.
Maybe part of the problem is this moron is one of the police chiefs in D.C.
What the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So the executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services, and our home rule charter outlines the process. The president designated Attorney General Bondi as his proxy to request services through me.
We have a chief that doesn't know what the chain of command is. She's not a one-off, Julio. We've seen police chiefs across the country in various cities, Cincinnati most recently, that are obviously communist activists. How many of these people are in charge of the major metropolitan police departments?
Well, it seems to be all of them, or nearly all of them. And it's not even, for example, the police departments, but like in Los Angeles, when the fires were raging out of control earlier this year, there was problems with the police chief as well. It was system wide over there. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't just her fault, but I mean, it just shows that this idea again from 2020. I mean, all this really started in 2020. I know I keep coming back to it, but there's a reason for it. Again, because especially now that the media wants to talk about January 6th, it's like, well, there are all these policies that were implemented, maybe not federally, but locally and statewide, that has led to disaster results. People have died. People have had their quality of life ruined for various reasons and from various departments of a city or state. And so it's unfortunate that we're still dealing with these effects because, as I was saying earlier, this is all by choice. And thankfully, with DC being a federal district, okay, President Trump can have a much easier time kind of taking control of the situation to try to fix it. But you see what's happening in New York City with Mondami seemingly about to become the New York mayor and all of his crazy radical ideas. I don't know. It just seems like if you want to be a liberal, you got to have this sense of self harm or they can't govern themselves, right? I mean, all of these things that they're proposing and they want to put into effect, it's had disastrous results, but people keep voting for them. You have Brandon Johnson. He's the mayor of Chicago. He has historic unapproval rate, and yet people still voted for him. And, so I don't know, for those other places, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, yeah, there was a rightward shift in some of those cities with this recent election, but it's not like Chicago or Los Angeles or New York are going to flip red anytime soon because it's a managed decline and people just get used to it. And people are just like, oh, well, it's just part of living in a city when it doesn't have to be. I don't understand why people don't really understand that it doesn't have to be this way. But I think it's just because the solutions to their problems is seen as racist. It's seen as xenophobic or seen as, fascist in nature. And so I don't know what the solution is to be honest. I don't know if there's going to turn around anytime soon, but hopefully DC can be a case study with this upcoming deployment to show, yes, you need law and order in these places to actually get things back on track.
Julio, what are we expecting specifically about this deployment, right? We saw the press conference. We heard, 1,000 National Guard troops and they're taking over the DC Metro Police Department, things like that. But, okay, what does that look like on the ground?
So my understanding is that the National Guardsmen, in addition to providing infrastructure security, which is kind of what they're used for in civil disturbances, they're basically going to be force protection for the federal assets that have also been surged to the region, to the city. And so that frees up manpower, right? I mean, instead of having federal agents protecting an asset or infrastructure, they can actually go out and be proactive because then those National Guardsmen take their place to stand guard. And Jesse, you and I all know about Firewatch and gear guarding and all that. It's not the most glorious thing, but there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that job, and it's a force multiplier, right? So again, it remains to be seen exactly how it will play out, but I think it sends a message at the end of the day to the criminal element in the city, which has run rampant for some time, that playtime's over. And, we've seen it be effective at the border. We've seen it be effective in Los Angeles after the initial wave of anti-ICE riots. Those have died down in Los Angeles pretty significantly. So I personally don't see a problem with using the resources that the president has within his purview to go out and activate this particular asset and personnel.
Did you ever fall asleep on Firewatch? Be honest.
No, but I fell asleep during a classroom during boot camp, and I got caught by the first sergeant.
Oh, what'd they do to you? Tell me what they did.
Oh, they ran me out of the classroom. I had to go to the sandpit.
All right. Donald Trump said he's going to send the military after the cartels. What's that mean?
That's kind of the question. So in the ideal scenario is that we are working with countries in Latin America to have their permission to work in conjunction with their militaries to go after these targets. But Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum, she has said repeatedly, she just said it last week, again, saying no, U.S. military is not allowed. We're not going to allow it because of national sovereignty. Of course, when it comes to national sovereignty within its own borders with the cartels, that's a different story. And she even boasted about how the federal agencies like DEA, FBI, that work within Mexico, they're under the strictest regulations in all of Latin America. So, it basically makes it harder for them to work with their partners. And so then the question is, okay, so then do we do, Star Spangled Banner across the Rio Grande into Mexico? Yeah, I don't know if that's particularly smart, but I will say that we've spent vast amounts of money, billions of dollars. We've lost thousands of troops recently in recent wars across in the Middle East. We've spent a lot of money in Ukraine to defend its borders, and so of course naturally people ask, well, why can't we use that same power and might within our own hemisphere, but in particular with our southern neighbor that has a lot of issues? I love Mexico, but let's be real. There's a lot of significant issues that impact us directly. So the order has been given by President Trump as far as we know. And so that's why the Pentagon is currently trying to figure out exactly what that means, because there's also the legal issues that come with it, with, rules of war and warfare. So I don't expect the First Marine Division to go across into Tijuana, not on a weekend for Liberty, but for in terms of a combat. Mm-hmm. But yeah, about that, Jesse. This is new territory, right? But again, there's a reason for that, because the status quo, simply approaching the cartels through a law enforcement perspective, strictly through a law enforcement apparatus, that hasn't worked. There's been some successes, don't get me wrong, but the end result is we're still dealing with fentanyl. There's all these new drugs that are even more powerful than fentanyl coming across the border and killing Americans needlessly. So understandably, that's why Trump was elected, right? One of the reasons is because not just with the war on drugs, but just in general, is that the status quo can't remain. There has to be new ideas, radical ideas, seemingly radical ideas, in order to finally get these problems resolved once and for all, because we're decades into this and there's no end in sight.
I just want to note that there's no evidence that I ever went to Tijuana that was strictly against the rules. Thank you, Julio. I appreciate it. Know what I had for breakfast this morning? I actually got the idea from my kid. Came out, he had gotten some extra crunchy peanut butter, and he was putting it on a banana. It's a great snack. So I'm putting it on a banana, but after I'm done with my peanut butter and banana, I did the same thing I do when I'm having breakfast tacos, when I'm having sausage McMuffins, biscuits and gravy. There's one thing that goes with my breakfast every single day, and that's a male vitality stack from Choq. Walked over to the pantry, got my stack, took my stack. Over 3 years, I have never taken a single thing in my life for more than a couple months. I've taken a male vitality stack from Choq for over 3 years because I feel so good. My energy, my mood. You want a 20% increase in your testosterone level. You want your mood to be better. You want to sleep better. You want to feel better. Join me and have what I have for breakfast. Not the banana. Well, I guess you can have that too. Choq.com/JesseTV. All right, so I'm in a great mood. I hope you're in a great mood. It's Wednesday, it's hump day, and I'm not going to bring you down. Okay, I'm not going to bring you down, but I just wanted to have a little talk. Just a little talk about where we are with the culture war. Remember, America is not just an economic system, okay? You are more than dollars and cents. America is a culture. Our culture is not kind of a side issue that we don't want to deal with. Having a good culture is everything. And the communists realized this years and years and years ago. This is before you were born, no matter how old you are. Before you were born, they realized, okay, hey, it's one thing to adjust taxes, try to go after private property. We need to destroy the family home. We need to destroy the church. We need to destroy the culture of America. And so they set out to do that. Generation after generation after generation. And really what they did, which was masterful, I admit it, Antonio Gramsci, the Italian communist, He said we have to march through the institutions. We can't destroy all these places we want to destroy, screaming on the street corner with a sign up, abortion. I mean, look, that has an effect, but that doesn't move the needle. What you need to do is infiltrate and conquer the institutions that create culture, that promote culture. And they did it. And they still have them. And I pause. I know we have good things happening right now. We elected Donald Trump. We have good pushback coming against these people. I'm not trying to bring you down and be Debbie Downer here. But just because we have the White House doesn't mean we have reconquered all the institutions they have. Trump, look, I really respect it. He talks about it.
This was a sick, woke culture that I think we've largely ended. And a lot of those people that were woke are now turning out to be the opposite.
It's sick. It's evil. And the people who have done that to us, the people who spent year after year, decade after decade, marching through our institutions so they could rot out this country from the inside, they're not gone. They haven't self-deported. In fact, most of the people haven't lost their jobs. 99.9% of them are exactly where they were before, on the inside of our institutions, pushing their demonic filth out as fast as they possibly can. They may be quieter now, they may have changed their titles, but they haven't changed their mind. I know, by the way, professional football is not probably something that's on your mind a lot. I don't watch anymore, sadly. I signed out of the NFL after being an NFL freak. I signed out about the time they printed Black Lives Matter in the end zone. But I'm also adult enough to acknowledge it does matter. Whether you watch or don't watch, it's one of the most popular forms of entertainment in the United States of America. Entertainment is a critical institution. Don't ever dismiss it as being nothing. It matters a lot. Let me introduce you to the new Minnesota Vikings cheerleaders. We haven't won. Don't think because we have the White House and because we are taking good steps that we can sit back and rest on our laurels and we've got them on the run. Oh, I know. We are making gains in ways we haven't made gains. And again, we should feel good about that. But this kind of filth is still absolutely everywhere. Go turn on the newest series from whatever, Prime, Netflix, and let me know how far you get into it before they roll out some LGBTQ turbo freak and rub it in your freaking face. We haven't conquered these people at all. I mean, look, the Washington, D.C.'s been in the news. And of course, this little tidbit from their D.C. police chief made the rounds yesterday.
That's what the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
You know what the chain of command is now? What does that mean? The chief of police. Do you think she's the only one? Police agency, major ones, the biggest ones in the country. Police agency after police agency after police agency has stocked itself full of DEI hire communist women running it, destroying it and rotting it out. It's not that it used to happen, it's happening now. It's happening today. Remember what the DC union said, the DC police union said when Trump stepped in and took over? Among the many things they said was, thank God we can't recruit anybody. Cities like Minneapolis, others across the country are so communist, so disgusting, run by some brain-dead communist woman, they can't get a young alpha male to join because who in the world would want to serve under that hag behind her Subaru? Nobody. Nobody would. We haven't won a thing. We are taking back ground slowly, but it is ground we lost. They took 100 yards of the football field. We just had a successful 3-yard run. Please don't get up and spike the football like some idiot prima donna who's still down 21 points with 97 yards to go. We have a long, long way to go. And we can never win this war while our university system churns out 4 million new trained communists a year, like this valedictorian.
Excuse my language, but to that I say f*** ICE and f*** the Trump administration.
4 million a year, trained, armed with the knowledge that America sucks, marching forward into the corporate world, back into the university system, into the legal profession. People just like that savage right there, they're still becoming judges. They're still getting elected to DA. They're still worming their way into the corporate boardroom, usually through the HR department. If your company has one of those, that's where you'll find the communist lesbians every single time. They are marching still through the institutions. We have a long, long way to go. Now's the time to push. Because the good news, I do want to end this little rant with some good news. The good news is they are afraid. They do feel the culture pushing back on them. They celebrated under Joe Biden for 4 years. That's why they behaved like the animals they are. They were practically dancing naked in the streets. Actually, not practically. Most of them were dancing naked in the streets. They thought they had it all, and now they're seeing it ripped from them. So they are afraid. When your enemy is afraid, you do not back off. You certainly don't extend a hand and help him up. You rout him and wipe him off of the field. Now's the time to be more aggressive than we have ever been. You keep that in mind. Did Adam Schiff leak classified intel about Donald Trump? I mean, look, let's be honest, we don't have to ask stupid questions. Of course he did, but I think maybe we have somebody who's going to testify to the fact. At least John Solomon, Just the News, says that's the case. Joining me now, someone who knows all kinds of details. He knows where all the bodies have been buried. He's been talking about it forever. My buddy Sean Davis with the Federalist, CEO and co-founder of the Federalist. Sean, that's a crime, right?
It used to be. Well, it's a crime if you're a Republican to do things, but if you leak classified information and you're a Democrat, apparently it's not.
Yeah, apparently it's not. So, okay, first let's dig into exactly that, Sean, before we get into the specific Adam Schiff stuff. Why is it that way? Why is it Republicans burn in the government and Democrats don't burn in the government? What has created that horrible environment?
It's a great question. I think there's probably two factors there. The first is that generally the left has taken over every major institution of power, whether it's corporate America or academia or law enforcement and intelligence at the federal level. So that was very much the case until recently when Trump was reelected and started doing Black Fridays and Black Mondays every other week to get rid of dead weight. And then I think the other issue is that until recently, the right generally thought that it was bad to use its political power. The left never had a problem with it. So when the left got in power, it used all its little people in the institutions to destroy its enemies. And so they played for keeps and they played to win. And I think Republicans are now finally waking up to the reality is that you cannot win a political battle if you don't choose to use political power whenever you have it.
Okay, so that brings us to Adam Schiff. I remember Adam Schiff got a pardon from Joe Biden. Big old air fingers quote there, because I think we all know that drooling dementia patient didn't pardon anybody. But he did get a pardon of some kind. Someone signed the frigging pardon. Is he free and clear on all this stuff?
No, he's not. So I think there's two reasons probably he's not. The main one is that pardon, even assuming it's valid, assuming that Biden signed it, was only related to his work, I believe, on the J6 committee and his J6 nonsense. I don't believe it extended at all to what he was doing with his Russian collusion hoax conspiracy. And then number two, in order for a pardon to be valid, you actually have to accept it. My recollection was that Adam Schiff said he didn't need it or he rejected it. But either way, I don't think that pardon covers him at all for crimes he may have committed while he was running and may still be running the Russia collusion hoax.
Okay, Ed Martin. I love the guy. What's he doing right now?
Well, he's running the weaponization task force within DOJ, and I believe he was also just tapped by the Attorney General to be a special counsel looking at mortgage fraud, allegedly, by Letitia James, the AG who went after Trump on non-existent paperwork crimes, and after Adam Schiff, because it appears, at least if you listen to the HUD secretary, Bill Pulte, it certainly looks like Adam Schiff may have committed mortgage fraud by claiming as a primary residence a place that was not his primary residence.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so look, when people hear mortgage fraud, Sean, they don't hear high crimes and misdemeanors, right? They don't think prison time. But how serious of a crime is this?
Well, paperwork crime, which is what James accused and got Trump convicted of in New York, she was saying he was putting down fraudulent appraisals for Mar-a-Lago, that he wasn't using the tax appraisal that the county had, which everyone knows is only for tax purposes, not for total value purposes, and that he overstated his Mar-a-Lago value so he could get loans using it as collateral. So on the terms that she has created under her rules, this is a very, very serious crime that she and Schiff may have committed. And I think the way the right needs to look at things now is that you have to go after the left as good and as hard as they went after you. I wanted a different set of rules. I wanted the actual rule of law and pushed for that for a long time. Our side lost. The other side decided they were going to put their opponents in prison. Those are the rules we have now. So those are the rules they're going to get to play by.
Okay, J.D. Vance came out recently and he said he thinks we're going to see indictments, real indictments. In fact, he said, I believe it was a lot of indictments. Now, I'm as cynical as anybody, but when the vice president is saying that, that sure is dumping quite a hot potato in the lap of the attorney general unless he knows some of these things are coming. John, are we going to see government people go to prison?
I hope so. Although I'll tell you, I'm getting tired of being, Charlie with the football trying to kick it and then Lucy pulls it away, which is what the last 8 years have felt like. So I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but I will say this time feels different. The facts we're getting are different. The transparency we're getting is different. And we have a very different Trump and a very different Trump administration in office now than we did the first time. And I don't think they're messing around. You know, the FBI was sent to rifle through his house, to rifle through his wife's underwear drawer. They denied him security that led him to getting shot in the head. They tried to make him die in prison and bankrupt him. I don't think he's playing around anymore, and I don't think the people working for him are playing around. And so to me, it feels different. It feels like something is coming and people are going to get indicted and hopefully convicted for their crimes.
Well, let's hope so. Sean, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
All right, it is time to lighten the mood, and dogs are, they're something that gets featured regularly on this show for Lighten the Mood because don't they make us all happy? It's not just yours. When you see a video of a dog doing something, loving on some sick kid or saving somebody from a bear, puts a smile on your face.
Scout, come here. Scout. Oh my God.
I am glad the dog didn't catch the bear. I'll see you tomorrow.